This is a reading of the rules of the trail, as passed down by my grandparents, mostly. Before any trip, one must learn the rules of the road, or in this case, trail, or maybe even of just being in the outdoors, regardless of your activity. My grandparents made sure we were all good stewards of the earth and courteous visitors, as well as respectful of those who made our outdoor adventures safe and possible. Growing up, I just assumed everyone had been taught these. Adult me knows better. Here's a list of the rules that I continue to nature by. Rule 1. Pack out what you pack in. Anything you've brought into the natural space should leave with you, with the exception of your footprints, of course, and those sweat droplets. This includes the obvious trash, like snack wrappers, but also includes natural waste, like orange peels and apple cores. And if you've chosen to bring your furry friend with you, as distasteful as it might be, their waste needs to leave with you too. And I know you tell yourself you'll pick up that brightly colored bag on your way out, but are you sure you'll remember where you put it? Rule 2. Leave it better than you found it. For each person who follows Rule 1, there's probably someone else who doesn't. So that leads to Rule 2. My grandma and I would often take a plastic grocery bag with us and pick up trash as we hiked. During my last 2 hikes recently, I ended up carrying out a single-use plastic water bottle each time, and a granola bar wrapper, and a plastic soda bottle lid. I try to assume that the trash somehow escaped someone's grip or pocket, and not that they made the conscious decision to drop the trash deliberately on the ground. Regardless, the outcome is the same. So, police your trash and apprehend a few extra pieces for good measure. Rule 3. Respect the trail. Don't bushwhack and don't cut switchbacks. I've never worked or volunteered for an agency that makes the trails, though I have helped with trail maintenance. I assume there is an intentional plan for how and where trails are laid out, though, placed so that no delicate habitats are trampled and so that erosion is limited. When people bushwhack, they blaze their own trail and compact soil away from the established path. Compacted soil doesn't sustain life as well as non-compacted soil, so vegetation will have a harder time literally taking root, and the microbiota that live in the soil may find it less hospitable. If you bushwhack enough non-sanctioned trails, and the natural biodiversity of that area can be compromised. Switchbacks may make the hike longer in terms of mileage because you're going back and forth while you move up or down a slope, but that is done to reduce erosion and slow down water. Because the soil of a trail gets compacted from the pressure of those many feet, it doesn't absorb water well when there is precipitation. The trail essentially becomes a sluice for that water. This is bad for a couple reasons. The natural space needs water to move slowly enough for it to soak into the soil for longer-term storage. The water can't do this if it's flying down the compacted trail dirt like a luge team. And where water goes, sediment follows. If a trail were to just cut straight up or down a hill, it essentially serves as a water channel and will get eroded and rutted out over time. Where there's no soil, there's no life. So switchbacks encourage both water and soil to stay where they're needed most. Rule 4. Take only pictures leave only footprints. I'll admit that I have been guilty of breaking this one. Rocks are such a temptation for me. I literally have boxes and glass jars full of rocks at home. And my grandmother and I most definitely spent one summer collecting single specimens of some of our favorite wildflowers and pressing them to preserve them. But the idea is, if everyone did this, what would be left? And are we fully aware of whether whatever we're collecting is plentiful, or if we're compromising its population stability? And is our want or need of the desirable souvenir more important than the services that item provides within its natural sphere? Now, am I going to make a child cry if they pick a wildflower bouquet for their favorite person? No. Will I try to turn it into a teachable moment of the amazing niche wildflowers fill? Probably. And let's be honest, taking photos is so much easier than it used to be. No 28 picture limit on this roll of digital film. Rule 5. It's the animal's home. Be respectful guests. If you find a burrow, a hole, a nest, a spider web off the trail, leave them be. If you see a bird, a cool insect, a deer, a squirrel, something bigger, observe from a distance. As tempting as it is to throw that rock or smash that stick against a tree, resist. Move through nature as you would want someone to move through your home, the home that you love and feel safe in. You get to visit nature and leave. The organisms who actually live there are stuck with whatever you do to it. Rule 6. Mind your noise. This wasn't so much an issue when I was younger, but with the advent of travel-sized speakers, noise pollution on the trail has become a much more prevalent problem. When I hike, the sounds of nature are part of the restorative experience. Wind rustling through the trees, the burbling of running water, the cadences of birdsong, the whining and buzzing of insects, even the steady crunching of my boots on the trail. This peaceful soundtrack is obliterated when someone comes down the trail blasting their hiking playlist through an external speaker. Not to be rude, but nobody on the trail wants to listen to your music, friend. You chose to spend time in nature, so be fully present. As a precautionary note, I also don't advocate listening to your music through earbuds or headphones. Auditory cues are an essential part of trail safety. No animal willingly gives up its sense of hearing, especially when you're in an uncontrolled, unfamiliar space in which being on alert can literally be the difference between life and death. Want to read more about how beneficial the sensory experience of being in nature can be for your mind and body? Read another one of my articles in my Nature's Classroom series. Rule 7. Know the trail. Know your limits. Trails have ratings. Sometimes these can be found on the trail map at the trailhead, or you can download an app. I use AllTrails, I'm not sponsored, where trail ratings, conditions, and descriptions are available, along with hiker reviews. However you get the information, educate yourself before you step foot on the trail. Some of the things you might benefit from knowing is how long the trail is, what the elevation gain is, the surface of the trail, and the amount of sun exposure. If you're hiking at higher elevations or during peak temperatures, increase the difficulty rating by at least one level. Take more water than you think you need. protect yourself from the weather. And remember that whatever you go up or down, eventually you'll have to come back, unless it's a loop trail. While living in Arizona, it was a regular summer occurrence that hikers would have to get airlifted from a local urban hike called Camelback because they just weren't prepared. Sadly, it stopped being surprising to hear that a hiker had died due to heat-related trauma. Don't become another statistic. Be honest about your hiking ability and familiarize yourself with the trail. And Rule 8. Keep a small rock in your pocket. This is a special one. Until recently, my grandfather was the only one I'd heard of who used this trick. When you tuck a small rock under your tongue, it triggers salivation and keeps your mouth moist despite all that heavy breathing. It can reduce the sensation of thirst, so you still need to be cognizant of your hydration levels, because a reduced thirst sensation doesn't actually mean you need less water. Nowadays, I rarely hike with less than 3 liters of water in a backpack hydration system. Thank you, Arizona Hiking, for making me deathly afraid of ever running out of water on the trail. But when I was a young girl hiking with my grandma, all we took with us were a 16-ounce plastic bottle of water each. Granted, we were rarely far from some source of running water, but we certainly didn't carry with us any of the methods for treating water to make it potable. And my grandmother did often keep hard candies in her fanny pack, which were a much more pleasant way to stimulate salivation. So perhaps it's more of a sentimental tradition now than a useful practice. If you give this one a try, avoid swallowing or biting the rock. So which rule is your favorite? Are there any that I missed? Let me know. Leave a comment. Become part of my little community here on Substack. Thank you for listening, and I hope we can visit again.